The sun was just rising over the quiet fields, painting the sky in soft oranges and pinks. Elias, a human farmer, was already at work, his hands deep in the cold soil. The farm was small, but he loved it. It was peaceful, far from the noisy towns and busy markets. Birds sang in the trees, and a thin mist hovered above the ground. It was a normal morning, or at least it should have been. As Elias bent to plant a row of seeds, he noticed something strange in the distance. Smoke was curling up from the edge of the nearby woods. It was not the smoke of a fire pit or a cooking fire. It was thick and golden, sparkling slightly in the morning sun. Curiosity and caution pulled at him at the same time. He knew the forest could be dangerous, but something made him walk toward the smoke instead of away. As he got closer, his breath caught. By the riverbank, a dragon knelt on the ground. Its scales shone like polished gold, and its wings were folded tightly against its sides. The dragon's eyes, large and glimmering, were fixed on a tiny hatchling that shivered weakly in its talons. The baby dragon was so small, it could barely lift its head. Its cries were soft, almost like whispers of wind. Elias froze. He had heard stories of dragons, of course, but he had never seen one up close. Most humans would have run or raised their weapons, but something about the mother dragon stopped him. The dragon looked at him, her gaze sharp and alert. She hissed softly, a warning to stay back. But her eyes told a different story. They were filled with fear, worry, and desperation. Elias could feel the tension in the air, the mix of danger and sorrow. He understood that this was not a threat but a mother in need. His heart ached for her, and more for the tiny hatchling. Elias moved slowly, keeping his hands visible and empty. He carried a small loaf of bread wrapped in cloth and a jar of warm milk. The dragon's eyes followed every step. Her tail twitched nervously, and her wings shifted slightly. The hatchling whimpered and tried to crawl closer to its mother. Elias knelt a few feet away, setting the bread and milk on the ground. "I don't want to hurt you," he said softly, his voice steady. "I just want to help." The mother dragon growled low in her throat, a sound that vibrated through the air. It was both a warning and a plea. Elias held his ground, waiting, letting the dragon understand that he meant no harm. The hatchling tried to move toward the food, but its tiny legs were too weak. The mother nudged it gently with her snout, encouraging it. Elias took a deep breath and inched closer, offering a small piece of bread. The dragon hissed but did not attack. Hunger and trust battled in her eyes, and for a moment, Elias thought she would strike. Then, slowly, the mother lowered her head. The hatchling reached for the milk, and Elias poured it carefully into a small bowl. The baby drank eagerly, its tiny tongue flicking in excitement. The mother watched closely, still tense but less hostile. Elias could feel a connection forming, fragile but real. He sat back, letting them eat, feeling his heart race with a mix of fear and wonder. The river sparkled nearby, and the wind carried the scent of wet earth and warm scales. The mother dragon shifted closer to the hatchling, her wings wrapping protectively around it. Elias realized that this dragon was not just a creature of power and fire. She was a parent, vulnerable and brave in the same moment. He felt respect for her courage and a strange sense of kinship. Time seemed to slow. Birds stopped singing and even the breeze held its breath. Elias stayed still, careful not to frighten them. The hatchling finished the milk and curled against its mother, exhausted but content. The mother let out a low, almost satisfied hum. Elias smiled softly. For the first time, he understood that fear was not always the strongest instinct. Sometimes, kindness and warmth could reach where force could not. As the morning light grew stronger, Elias began to talk quietly to the dragon. He told her about his farm, about his crops and animals, about the quiet life he lived here. The dragon listened, her golden eyes following him, her wings shifting slightly as if she understood. She did not speak, but her presence felt like an answer. Elias knew this was the start of something unusual, something extraordinary. The mother dragon lifted her head and sniffed the air, watching the forest beyond. The hatchling stirred, nuzzling closer to her. Elias slowly stood, keeping his distance. He knew they would not leave right away, but he also knew they needed safety and care. He would provide it. In his heart, he felt a promise forming, a promise to protect this mother and child even if the world around them did not understand. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the field. Elias felt the warmth of hope growing inside him. A dragon in need, a human willing to help, an unexpected meeting that neither of them could have planned. The forest, the farm, the riverbank, all of it seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. And for the first time in his life, Elias felt that perhaps this strange encounter would change everything. Elias spent the rest of the morning watching the dragon mother and her hatchling. He stayed a safe distance away, not wanting to frighten them, but he kept them in sight. The hatchling moved closer to the mother, its tiny body trembling as it tried to explore the soft grass near the riverbank. Elias noticed how weak it was, how its legs shook under its small frame. He knew that if he wanted the baby to survive, he would have to earn the mother's trust first. He walked slowly back to his farmhouse and returned with blankets, a small basket of fresh vegetables and some warm water. He built a small shelter near the river, placing the blankets carefully so the baby could stay warm. The mother dragon watched him the whole time, her golden eyes sharp and wary. She huffed a small puff of smoke, a quiet warning to keep his distance. Elias nodded to show he understood. He spoke softly as he arranged the items. "I only want to help. I won't hurt you or your baby." The mother shifted slightly, lowering herself closer to the hatchling. Elias waited patiently, letting her decide if he was safe. Hours passed, and he slowly began leaving small portions of food near the blanket. At first, the dragon did not move toward it. She hissed softly whenever he approached, her body tense and ready to protect her young. Elias did not rush. He spent time near the fire, keeping the food warm, speaking quietly to the forest around him. He wanted the dragon to feel the calmness of his presence. The hatchling tried to crawl toward the food, its tiny wings flapping as it struggled. The mother nudged it gently, encouraging it to eat. Elias watched with a mix of awe and concern. He could see that the baby's survival depended on him, but he also knew that breaking through the mother's fear would take time. He picked up a piece of bread and held it near the ground, far enough from the hatchling that the mother did not feel threatened. Slowly, the mother leaned forward, sniffing the bread. She hissed softly but did not strike. Elias froze, keeping his hands low and his body calm. Finally, the mother stepped back and allowed the hatchling to nibble at the bread. Elias felt a small thrill of success. It was the first sign that she might trust him. Over the next few hours, he repeated the process, always keeping his movements slow and deliberate. He spoke softly, telling the dragon about his farm, the animals he cared for, and the small life he lived in the quiet fields. The dragon did not answer with words, but her eyes followed him, watching his every move. By evening, the mother dragon had shifted closer to the shelter. She let the hatchling curl up on the blankets Elias had laid out. The baby drank the warm water he had brought, and for the first time, it seemed to relax. The mother's wings wrapped protectively around it, and she glanced at Elias, almost as if she was acknowledging him. Elias smiled softly, feeling a warmth he had never felt before. This fragile trust, earned in small steps, was the beginning of something extraordinary. The forest grew quiet as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and purple. Elias built a small fire near the shelter, keeping it low so it would not scare the dragons. He sat nearby, watching them, making sure the mother and baby were safe. The mother shifted her head, watching him calmly, her body tense but not aggressive. Elias knew that this peace could not last forever, but for now it was enough. He felt a deep sense of connection, a bond forming through patience and care. As night fell, the stars began to appear, twinkling above the forest. The mother dragon lay down, the hatchling nestled against her chest. Elias stayed close, keeping the fire burning and speaking softly to the night. He realized that trust was not given, it was earned, slowly and carefully. Each small gesture, each moment of calm, brought them closer together. The mother had begun to understand that he meant no harm, and he had begun to understand the strength and vulnerability of her love for her child. In the quiet darkness, a soft wind rustled the trees. Elias felt the weight of the moment. He had never imagined that he could form a bond with a creature so powerful, yet so gentle in its own way. The mother dragon's eyes glimmered in the firelight, watching him with a cautious understanding. The hatchling slept peacefully, its small chest rising and falling. Elias realized that this night marked a turning point. The fragile trust between human and dragon had begun, and it was stronger than fear, stronger than doubt. Elias whispered to the mother, "You don't have to be afraid. I will help you. I promise." The dragon shifted her head slightly, a small movement, almost like an answer. Elias smiled, feeling hope grow in his chest. This was the start of a new bond, one built on care, patience and warmth. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now the mother and her baby were safe. He would protect them, and in return they had begun to teach him about courage, love and the power of trust. The night deepened and the fire flickered softly. Elias watched the two dragons, feeling a sense of awe he could not put into words. The fragile trust had been earned, but it was only the beginning. The bond would grow stronger step by step, and soon the human and the dragons would face the world together, learning from each other in ways neither could imagine. For now, however, they rested. And in that quiet, shared moment, the first true connection between human and dragon was born. The night was quiet, almost too quiet. The stars shone brightly above Elias's farm, and the fire he had built earlier flickered softly, casting warm light over the small clearing where the mother dragon and her hatchlings slept. Elias sat nearby, keeping watch. He felt proud of the fragile trust he had earned, but a small worry nagged at him. Dragons were not always gentle, and the forest was full of dangers he could not see. Suddenly a sound broke the silence. A deep, rumbling echo came from the trees, followed by the rapid beat of large wings. Elias froze. His heart raced. The sound grew louder, closer. Through the shadows he could see dark shapes moving between the trees. They were other dragons, larger, more aggressive, and clearly not pleased with the presence of a human near one of their kind. Elias knew immediately that these were not friendly visitors. The mother dragon stirred, lifting her head and spreading her wings slightly. Her eyes glimmered in the firelight, sharp and alert. She hissed softly, a warning that danger was near. The hatchling woke with a small whimper, crawling closer to her. Elias stood slowly, trying not to startle her. He could see the larger dragons moving closer, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They were curious but also territorial. Any human near a young dragon could be seen as a threat. Elias realized he had to act fast. He grabbed a torch and held it high, waving it to catch the attention of the intruders. The larger dragons hissed and flared their wings, their scales reflecting the light. Elias shouted, trying to scare them away, but they did not back down. He took a deep breath and focused. Fear would not help now. Only quick thinking could save the hatchling. The mother dragon moved in front of her baby, her wings spreading wide. She hissed louder, her claws scraping the ground. Elias understood her instinct. She trusted him, but she was ready to protect her child with everything she had. He felt a surge of respect for her courage. Even now, faced with a group of aggressive dragons, she did not flee. She stood her ground, and Elias knew he had to support her. He started making noise, clapping and shouting, using the torch to create flashes of light. The dragons hesitated, glancing at each other. Elias noticed they were not used to humans standing up to them. They were curious about him, trying to understand if he was dangerous or weak. He used this to his advantage, moving slowly toward the edge of the clearing, keeping himself between the wild dragons and the mother with her hatchling. The mother dragon followed his movements carefully, never letting her baby out of her sight. Elias could see her calculating, understanding that he was trying to help. He continued waving the torch and shouting, leading the intruders away from the clearing. Smoke from the fire drifted into the forest, adding confusion. The larger dragons hissed and flapped their wings, unsure of how to react. Finally, after several tense minutes, Elias managed to guide the wild dragons far enough from the baby that they lost interest. They circled once, growled softly, and then retreated into the darkness of the forest. Elias lowered the torch, his chest heaving. He turned to see the mother dragon watching him closely, her golden eyes sharp but calm. She had not attacked him even when danger was near. That trust they had built was real. The hatchling crawled toward Elias and the mother, trembling but safe. Elias knelt down and placed his hand gently on the baby's back. The mother lowered her head to nuzzle both of them, a soft, almost approving sound escaping her throat. Elias smiled, feeling the bond between them grow stronger in that moment. Danger had come, and both human and dragon had faced it together. As the forest quieted again, Elias and the mother dragon settled near the fire. He checked the hatchling carefully, making sure it was unharmed. The mother curled around her baby, wings folded, keeping it warm and safe. Elias understood that this night had changed something. It was no longer just about feeding and shelter. It was about protection, trust, and courage. Both human and dragon had shown bravery, and both had earned respect from the other. The wind whispered through the trees, and the stars seemed brighter than before. Elias realized that the world outside the clearing could be full of threats, but in this small space, trust and courage had created a bond stronger than fear. The mother dragon had seen that he could be an ally, and he had seen the power of her love and protection. Together they had faced danger and survived. Elias sat quietly, watching the mother and hatchling. He knew that tomorrow would bring more challenges, but he felt ready. He had learned how to communicate through actions, patience, and respect. The mother dragon had learned that humans could be more than hunters or enemies, they could be protectors, friends, even family. Hours passed and the forest grew calm. Elias kept a small fire burning, enough to provide warmth but not enough to scare the dragons. The hatchling fell asleep against its mother, safe and content. Elias felt a sense of pride and wonder. This night had tested them and they had passed. Trust, fragile as it was, had grown stronger under pressure. As the first light of dawn touched the trees, Elias stood and looked at the dragons. The mother stretched her wings and let out a soft growl, a sound that seemed almost like a promise. She had accepted him as part of their world, and he had accepted them as part of his. In that quiet moment, Elias knew that a new chapter was beginning, one where humans and dragons could face dangers together, learning from each other and protecting what they loved. The forest was still, the hatchlings slept, and Elias felt hope. Danger had come and gone, but the bond he had built with the dragons had grown stronger. The mother dragon nuzzled her baby and glanced at him, her eyes full of cautious trust. Elias smiled. This was only the beginning of a remarkable journey, one of friendship, courage, and a bond that would change both human and dragon forever. Days passed, and the small clearing near Elias's farm became a place of quiet routine. The mother dragon and her hatchling were no longer trembling with fear. Their eyes followed Elias with curiosity instead of suspicion. Each morning he brought fresh water and food, and each evening he made sure the fire was warm enough to keep them comfortable. The hatchling grew stronger every day, its legs firmer, its wings flapping with more confidence. The mother watched over it closely, but she no longer hissed at Elias when he approached. Elias began to notice something remarkable. The mother dragon, once wary and tense, started helping him without being asked. One morning she nudged a heavy log blocking the irrigation ditch, using her powerful shoulders to push it aside. Elias stared in amazement. He had done that alone many times before, struggling and sweating, but now, with her help, the task was simple. He laughed softly, praising her. "You're stronger than you look," he said. The dragon's eyes glimmered and she made a soft hum, almost like a laugh in response. Over the next few weeks their cooperation grew. The mother would use her wings to clear fallen branches from the field. She helped chase away wild animals that tried to steal crops. The hatchling followed, copying her movements, learning how to be strong and careful. Elias marveled at the bond forming between human and dragons. He had heard stories of dragons being dangerous and wild, but these two were different. They were intelligent, caring, and capable of understanding kindness. The nearby villagers noticed the change too. At first, they were terrified when they saw the golden dragon near Elias's farm. Some whispered about danger, warning Elias to stay away from the creatures. But soon they saw how the dragons helped protect his crops, how they worked alongside him without harming anyone. Fear turned into curiosity, and curiosity slowly became respect. Elias became known not only as a hard-working farmer but also as a bridge between humans and dragons. One afternoon, as the sun beat down warmly over the fields, the mother dragon lifted the hatchling onto a low branch of a tree, showing it how to balance and hold on. Elias watched with a smile. The hatchling wobbled and fell a few times, but the mother was patient, nudging it gently each time. Elias realized that dragons, like humans, needed guidance and care. Trust had to be built slowly, but once it was earned, it could create incredible results. Elias began teaching the mother and hatchling simple signs to understand him better. He pointed to food, to water, to tools, and to the river. The mother learned quickly, following his gestures and responding with nods of her head or soft hums. The hatchling copied her, learning from both its mother and the human who had saved its life. A small language of cooperation developed between them, simple but effective. Communication became easier and their teamwork more efficient. The mother dragon became protective not just of her hatchling, but also of Elias. She would circle the farm when he worked in the fields, keeping watch for any dangers from the forest. One evening, a pack of wild wolves approached, drawn by the scent of the animals in his barn. Elias froze for a moment, then saw the dragon spread her wings wide, her roar echoing through the trees. The wolves scattered immediately. Elias laughed in relief, realizing he had never felt safer. The dragons had become not just friends, but allies, sharing the responsibility of survival and protection. The hatchling grew bolder too, attempting small flights across the clearing. Elias clapped and cheered, encouraging it. The mother watched proudly, nudging it forward whenever it faltered. Together they learned from each other, humans teaching patience and care, dragons teaching strength and courage. The farm flourished like never before. Crops grew taller, animals were safe, and Elias felt a deep satisfaction in knowing that trust and cooperation could change even the wildest hearts. Elias also realized that the bond extended beyond just work. The dragons brought warmth and companionship. On cold nights, the mother would lie beside the fire with the hatchling curled against her, and Elias would sit nearby, feeling the steady rhythm of their breathing. Silence between them was comforting, a peaceful understanding. The forest no longer felt threatening. Instead, it felt alive with possibilities. Elias and the dragons had created a small community built on respect, courage, and care. News of the dragons and Elias's farm slowly spread to other settlements. Humans came to see for themselves, some with fear, others with hope. They watched as Elias worked alongside the dragons, learning the ways of communication and teamwork. Slowly, other dragons came closer, curious about the human who had earned the trust of one of their kind. The mother watched carefully, ensuring her hatchling stayed safe, but she did not show aggression toward the newcomers. Elias realized that this was only the beginning. The world could be dangerous and not all humans would understand, but here, in this clearing, something extraordinary was happening. Humans and dragons could live together, learning from each other, protecting each other, and growing stronger together. The bond of trust, once fragile, had become the foundation of an alliance that could change the way their world worked. As the sun set, painting the sky in gold and purple, Elias sat beside the mother dragon and her hatchling. The mother leaned her head gently against his shoulder, and the hatchling nuzzled close to him. In that quiet moment, Elias felt hope and pride. He had saved a life, earned trust, and formed a bond that could last a lifetime. The dragons were no longer just creatures of legend or fear, they were family. Together, they were proof that patience, courage, and warmth could unite even the most unlikely of allies. The morning sun rose over the fields, casting a warm glow on Elias's farm. The mother dragon stretched her wings, and the hatchling flapped its small wings excitedly, eager to explore the day. Elias stood nearby, smiling. The farm was quiet, peaceful, and full of life. Over the past months, the bond between human and dragons had grown stronger than he ever imagined. They were no longer strangers. They were family. The mother dragon now trusted Elias completely. She allowed him to help care for her hatchling, guiding it gently as it learned to fly higher and explore further. The little dragon had grown stronger and more confident, hopping and gliding across the clearing with playful energy. Elias clapped and cheered, encouraging it every step of the way. The mother watched proudly, nudging her baby whenever it wobbled or lost balance. Together they practiced and learned, a small family working in harmony. Neighbors and travelers had begun to visit the farm. At first they were afraid, whispering about dragons and danger. But when they saw Elias working alongside the golden dragon and her hatchling, fear turned into awe. The dragons protected the farm, helped with chores, and even played gently with the villagers. People began to understand that these creatures, once feared, could be friends. Children laughed as they watched the hatchling attempt small flights, guided by its mother and encouraged by Elias. One afternoon, as Elias tended the fields, the mother dragon lifted her hatchling onto a low tree branch. She demonstrated how to balance and glide, showing patience and care. The hatchling tried again and again, sometimes falling, sometimes landing successfully. Elias cheered and clapped each time it managed to hold steady. Watching them, he realized that trust and love could teach more than fear ever could. The dragons had learned from him and he had learned from them. They had built a partnership rooted in understanding and kindness. The farm flourished like never before. The dragon's strength helped move heavy logs, clear the river path, and protect crops from wild animals. Elias's work became easier, but more importantly, the joy of having these creatures as companions filled his heart. The mother dragon would occasionally rest beside him, her large golden head close enough that he could feel her warm breath. The hatchling would nuzzle his hands, playful and curious. Every small movement, every shared moment, reinforced the bond they had built. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Elias noticed a group of dragons approaching from the forest. They were cautious, curious, and wary. The mother dragon stood protectively over her hatchling, but she did not hiss or attack. Elias smiled, understanding that her trust in him extended to these new visitors. Slowly the other dragons came closer, circling the farm and observing. They did not see a threat. They saw a human who had shown care, patience, and courage. One by one, they accepted the presence of humans on this land, guided by the example of the golden dragon. The hatchling flapped its wings toward the newcomers, chirping happily. The mother dragon nudged it gently, showing pride in its boldness. Elias knelt on the ground, watching, and felt a surge of happiness. They were no longer alone. Other dragons could witness the kindness and strength of humans, and humans could learn that dragons were more than legends. They were living beings capable of understanding and cooperation. Night fell and the fire Elias built crackled softly. The mother dragon lay beside the fire, her hatchling curled against her chest. Elias sat close, feeling the warmth of the flames and the steady rhythm of their breathing. The forest around them was quiet, peaceful. For the first time in his life, Elias felt completely at home in the world, surrounded by creatures that had once seemed impossible to trust. He realized that family was not just about blood, it was about trust, care, and shared moments of courage. Over time, the bond between humans and dragons became stronger across the region. Other villagers began leaving food for dragons, creating small safe spaces for them to rest. Dragons that were once feared began to live alongside humans, learning that patience, kindness, and courage were stronger than fear and aggression. Elias's farm became a symbol of this new world, a place where humans and dragons could coexist and thrive together. One quiet morning, Elias walked among the fields, the mother dragon flying above him, her hatchling following closely. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The dragons had taught him patience and bravery, and he had taught them trust and warmth. Together they had built a family stronger than fear, stronger than doubt, stronger than any danger that the forest might hold. As the sun rose higher, bathing the farm in golden light, Elias sat by the fire with the mother dragon and her hatchling nestled close. He reached out a hand, and the mother gently rested her head against it. The hatchling chirped happily, crawling onto his lap. In that moment, Elias knew that this was more than survival. It was love, trust, and belonging. The human and dragons were no longer two separate worlds. They were a family. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the warmth of the day and the promise of tomorrow. Elias, the mother dragon, and her hatchling had created a life together, one built on understanding and care. They had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty and come out stronger. Now the forest and the farm were alive with trust and friendship. The sun set slowly, painting the sky in orange and pink as Elias smiled, knowing that he had found something rare and precious. A new family that would endure for many years, a bond that would never break.